So welcome to the start of the third week of our class. Got a test this week, an assignment due this week, and have another assignment this week. We're going to get our project assignment this week. So it's a big week for week 3 as we kind of hit the halfway mark here of the class. Got my bat here with me that I like to carry around sometimes to the office, drag it around behind me. People can hear it. I was reminding them of the movie Untouchables. And you're not familiar with the scene, haven't seen the movie, first of all, you should see the movie. Secondly, there's a great scene with Al Capone and a bat talking about team. Obviously, you can look it up on YouTube. Today, we're going to talk about management. Again, the test is Wednesday. Tomorrow, I'll go over the test in our lecture. That's all the lecture will be about, is go over the test, so you'll have plenty of time to take the test. Take the test Wednesday. We'll be back in it on Thursday. Also, remember, on Monday at 5 o'clock, your video assessment of Generation Like is due to me, worth 20 points of your 100 points of assignment grade. So get that. And again, can't emphasize it enough. Go to the discussion boards, message boards, really a lot of slacking off on that. And again, doesn't really matter to me. It does matter on overall class participation, which is the 50 points of your grade. And I think if you got that, you need 405 points to make an A in the class. Those 50 class participation points will just give me points if you just participate. If not, you don't get them really, and then makes it harder to get an A in the class. So today we are going to talk about managing personnel. Tomorrow we'll have the test review. Wednesday we'll have the test. Thursday and Friday back with a couple more lectures, and it's all downhill after that. Great thing about doing this class online, here it is. I'm recording this on a Sunday. And I got my t-shirt on. Actually, sometimes I wouldn't even have shaved, but I actually did shave today because I have an event tonight. But glad you're all here with us. I'll put this up as soon as I can on Sunday, so it might even be up on Sunday. So we want to talk a little bit about management today, but and I think management's a lot like, and some of you have managed people, some of you haven't. Some of you have know what it's like to try to motivate people. We've seen some good talk about leadership roles and being a leader. Talked last week, there's a big difference between being the boss and being a leader. I mean, sometimes somebody's just the boss, but they're not really much of a leader. And that will probably something we will ask in the test as well. Some of the difference is of those two roles, boss and leader. But there is a certain part of being a boss that's very similar to this. And let's watch this little clip.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs and with birds and with chimpanzees, but with Sarah Brosnan we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put two capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group, they know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber, and there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests a rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again.
So that's management, right? That's you're dealing with employees all the time. Some of them doing similar jobs, some of them doing different jobs. How are they rewarded? What makes employees tick? Are you treating them all the same? All those things that you have to think about on a management issue. And what you're saying there with those monkeys is no different from what you sometimes see with employees when they feel like they're doing the same thing. They're working as hard or harder than the person next to them, or they're doing more work than their coworker, and they're not paid the same. And when you work for the state of Texas like we do here at Texas Tech, we all know what everyone's getting paid, right? So gosh, I'm making this amount of money, and that guy next to me is making more. It's an inequity thing, and you can see how sometimes some employees are motivated by titles. Some employees are motivated by money. Some employees are motivated by being able to take time off. You just don't know what is what. So anyway, we're going to talk about managing. I don't know why I've got a cough today. Managing personnel. Again, we've gone through this throughout the semester. Management is defined as a process. So it's a process in which individuals work with and through other people to accomplish other organizational objectives. And some people lose sight of this. There's really no such thing as really a business that you can do and that you can run if you don't take your employees as the best part of that organization. The employees are the most important asset of any organization. And so you've got to manage them. And you've got to somehow make sure that all of the people are pulling in the right direction. Everyone is rowing in the same direction, and you don't have somebody get off track or lose something. And the managers who fail to properly manage human resources are having to deal with problems related to turnover, low morale, inefficient performance, all of these things that happen when you have an employee or an employee situation or a variety of employees that you are not taking care of. If you are not watching it and making sure things are going in the right direction, if you are not managing it, it results in some of these things. We saw that last week in leadership. If you are not coaching it, you're letting it happen. You're either coaching it or allowing it to happen. So if an employee is coming in late every day and it bothers you, you can either A, do something about it, or B, not do something about it. But by you not doing something about it, the employee thinks it's okay. Coaching it or allowing it to happen. Something called force field analysis that we're really not interested here for this class. But managers recommend and oversee the following things: hiring, termination, firing, salary levels, what people are getting paid, vacation time. It's pretty much set in stone at a lot of places, but you have got to allow it. We try to tell people here, because we start gearing up for football season in August, we don't like people taking off in August, and so we have to manage vacation time. Performance reviews, which are really something that don't happen as often as they should in a lot of places. Again, I work for the state, so it's mandated we do this every year. And then training and development. You hire a new employee, you just let them kind of float in the wind, or do you work to train them? So in the hiring process, you've got to find different strategies to identify a qualified pool of applicants. So I'll give you a situation right now. We at Texas Tech Athletics, we are creating a position. It's called a social media director. We are looking for an employee to manage and lead all of our social media efforts. So what do you do with that? You've got to find a way to recruit the right people to talk about the job. You've got to find the right number of places to advertise it and get enough applicants. So I can recruit internally. And again, we see helps build morale among existing employees, and really is the fastest and easiest way to recruit. Why is that? Because I work with you. I know what your strengths are, your weaknesses are. I know if you would fit in. I know you're a good teammate. I know that you have the skills that I'm looking for. When you recruit externally, it's a mixed bag of tricks. So the internal candidate, we know what they're like. We know that, hey, Joe comes to work on time, that Joe will stay and do what it takes to get the job done. You can say whatever you want in a job interview to get the job. We don't know if it's true until you've got boots on the ground and you're here working with us. Some different ways you can do it. Job fairs, which is an efficient way to get a large number of applicants. So we do that sometimes in some NCAA job fairs. We'll go and have people come by. You guys will see this in media and communications. We'll do a media and communications job fair, and different companies will show up and they'll take your resume and they'll talk to you. And it's a way for you to meet the hiring people. It's a way for the hiring people to talk to a wide variety of people and get that going. Applications on file. Unsolicited applications, a lot of people, I wish I had $1 for the number of people that send me a resume unsolicited to say, hey, I'm looking for a job. If you have a job, if you know about a job, hey, I know this person that needs a job, all these things. So you might have applied for a job previously, you didn't get it, but we'll tell you, we'll keep you in mind for another job. And then you can advertise it. And here again shows you a little bit the fallacy of the book. You can place in local newspapers. When's the last time you picked up a local newspaper to look for a job? It's exactly what we talked about in the very first lecture. Newspapers losing that kind of revenue, but there are trade publications and obviously the internet. So I'll give again another Texas Tech example. We all are on this thing called the D1 ticker, which is news every day about what's going on in college athletics. So when we're advertising for a job, we'll put something on the D1 ticker because we know that everyone in the industry is looking at it. So I actually am hiring for 2 jobs, one pretty big time job, an associate athletics director job, and a social media director job. And I will put both of those on the D1 ticker. So different ways you can advertise. So again, you go to a place like a job fair. Higher level jobs, you're not going to really find your candidates that way. You can send in an application, you can fill out an application, and then you can advertise. Some other things, if you're looking for, this is going away, not as much as it used to be. Employment agencies are a good source for if you're looking for administrative help, administrative assistant kind of help. Consultants, headhunters, usually if you're on management, you've got a headhunter might come and reach out and call you and ask you about a job. Clearly, what you're doing right now, colleges, universities, other places to go to school, especially if you're just satisfied to get an entry-level position. Word of mouth and networking is really a great practice because it's why you should go to almost everything. One of you, I think, mentioned that you didn't go to a PR dinner one night where there were some people speaking. I was actually part of that night, and basically what happened was I sat at a table and people just shuffled through. It was like speed dating. We got 10 minutes or so with 5 or 6 students. We talked about it, and you moved on. And we actually found a couple different people that we use for different jobs through that. You meet them, you get a good feeling for them. Word of mouth is really good, and just be able to network. Internships, clearly I've talked about this a lot. Intern. People see you're hard at work. You might not get paid any money at first, but people have an idea of your work ethic. You meet a lot of people. It's just a great way to get hired. And then other sources, recommendations from other employers, advice from professional organizations, etc. The thing you look at in all these, the problem you have with something like employment agencies is that, yes, they want to give you a good candidate. Yes, they want you happy with the candidate. But also, they don't get paid unless you hire the person they send you. So that leads to sometimes them sending you less than qualified people. I was trying to find an assistant once, years ago. I was using an employment agency, and I felt like they were kind of gaslighting me or something. They were sending me just the oddest group of candidates that I started thinking, There was a show at the time called Punked, hosted by Ashton Kutcher, and I thought maybe I was being punked because every candidate that came in was a little bit weirder than the one before. So there's different ways you can find your people you're going to hire. Once recruitment process ends, you got to start saying the selection process begins. So one of the things that I wish I had it here, again, if I was going to class, I would show you in class. I didn't. Let me see if I have a file here. I don't have a file. Typically, for any job we get a lot of applicants. So the first thing that I do is look for a reason not to hire you. So if I have 50 resumes, clearly I'm not going to talk to all 50 people. Clearly I'm not going to read a bunch of different things in your resume. So I look for things that either set you apart. I try to do 2 stacks. Keep going or no longer interested. I was trying to see here. I have a resume here. I won't show it because the guy's name on it, but he talks about working at the University of Nebraska. He opened 2 brand new venues. First of all, I think I would take the word brand out. 2 new venues. Is there really a difference between brand new and new? And then he spelled venues correctly, but he did apostrophe S. So the possessive, venues, possessive. Now, he was already here when I talked to him, but it is something that I would have weeded out if I had just been going through the process. So you start selecting people to talk to. You get 2 or 3, and you arrange the interview. The problem you have if you interview too many is people start kind of all globbing together. You don't see a lot of difference. So you want to get a good number to interview, 3 to 5 to 6, just to talk to them. And again, it can be expensive and it's also time consuming. So if we bring somebody in for a job, we got to fly them in here, we got to put them up at a hotel, we got to fly them out, we got to feed them, we got to have a day where they interview with a bunch of different people, so everybody's time is spent. Okay, I'm going to spend a little time, we're going to spend a little time talking to everybody around, and so everybody has to put a little time and effort into it, and so it's time consuming. It's also expensive because all those people are actually getting paid for the real job. So that's part of the process of interviewing. On top of that, more than one interview may be required. Now, it's a great time we live in. It used to be if we wanted to interview somebody from far away, we'd have to bring them in and talk to them and do all those different things. Now, you can do a Skype interview, you can FaceTime, you can do all these different things to at least get a feel for how they are. And I'm a big feel guy. Generally, I can almost tell within the first 1 to 3 minutes if I think you're going to be a good fit or not. Now, sometimes I get fooled both ways, but most times I get a pretty good feel and have a pretty good touch on the process. But you may need one or more interview. And here's the thing that I really stress to you guys. It's appropriate for you, the job candidate, ask for information about the interview process in order to properly prepare. Who's going to be there? Who am I going to talk to? What's the dress code? What can I expect in the interview? So that you don't get caught, oh, I'm going to speak to the CEO. Okay, didn't know anything about that. And part of that, too, is I'm talking from the interviewer process here. We're talking about the interviewer because in this situation, you are the boss. You are the one doing the job interviewing. But you are also thinking about getting a job. You're looking at getting a job in the next couple of years. And so you need to understand, too, is this a place I want to work? Do I like these things? Have I done a little research on the business? When they say, hey, do you have any questions? You don't say, yeah, how many vacation days do I get? But instead you ask really meaningful questions about the business. Now, I'm not saying vacation time isn't important. I'm not saying that your salary is not important, but those shouldn't be the things you talk about in your first interview. And those should be the things you talk about when you get at the end of the process. Eventually, somebody's got to talk about money. Eventually, I've got to say, hey, here's what the job pays. Eventually, you have to say, hey, you haven't said what the job pays. What does it pay? That's all got to be done eventually. But that's not something you want to do right away. So I'll give you a great example. So I just hired an administrative assistant, great young lady named Amy Hughes. As I was looking for a candidate, I had about 100 applications, and there was one from a school in San Antonio, a small school, that I thought this might be a good fit. So I called her and do the initial interview, and I said, "Hey, right away, I noticed that you don't have a lot of experience in this area. I wanted to tell you that you will get to write here," because she was a writer. I said, "but this is also uh, an administrative job where you have to handle a lot of my stuff." And she's like, "Oh, what's the job pay?" First question out of her mouth. So I said, mid 30s. And so we talked and we talked. And then she started to say, I could just tell it wasn't going to be a good fit. So I said to her, I was like, "Yeah, maybe this isn't right for you." And she said, "No. What does it pay again? Low 30s, mid 30s?" And that's when I said, "You know what? This isn't right for you. I've decided that you're not a good candidate for this position." And so I cut it off right there. So you have to be, there is a time and a place for all of that. That phone call for her was not. And then eventually you find somebody that you want, you like a person, you're thinking this person would be a good fit for us, and you accept an offer of employment. One thing I would warn you as a manager, don't just hire somebody just because I've got to fill the position. I don't really like any of the candidates, because that can be a disaster also. Get somebody you like and hire. Then you get the new employee here. You tell the new employee about the company policies, and you introduce them to the personnel, and you go through all this, and that's basically called the orientation process. Clearly, this is common sense. Orientation should occur during the initial days of employment. Many companies provide an employee handbook. That's what we have, one online that people can look at. And there's the procedures regarding personnel. So one of the things that here at Texas Tech, we get an Under Armour discount. We're an Under Armour school. If you're an employee of the athletic department, you get a certain percentage of Under Armour off Under Armour clothing, and so there's a policy for that. There is a policy for sick days. There's a policy for lots of different things. It's all online, and those are the things. We send people to a new employee orientation when they first start, but we also go over what the rules and regulations for the athletic department are. The policy and procedure manual has things like non-discrimination in employment, how you get promoted or advance. Talks about performance reviews at Texas Tech. We do one after 90 days, and we do one every year. Benefit programs, again, we work in a great environment here where we have great benefits. You get a vacation day for every month you work. You get sick day for every month you work. That changes. I've been here like 6 years now, so now I get a vacation day. I get like a day in the quarter for every month I work, and that adds up. I've got probably right now about 12 weeks of vacation that I will not use, and then they'll take it back, and they'll if you get to a certain point, which I'm at that number, they'll switch it over to sick leave, and they'll kind of split it up because there's just some. I mean, they can't say I'm going to pay a guy for a year of vacation. Disciplinary actions, how things go, written warning, suspension, etc. And then if you have a grievance, what the formal policies are for the grievance. So these are things that it seems like common sense, and companies should make sure that all employees clearly understand their positions before they actually begin work. But guess what? Doesn't always happen that way. So that's something that doesn't always happen. So managers should also promote ongoing development activities for employees. Professional development. People want to feel like they're growing. People want to feel like they are getting something out of their job besides just a paycheck. Eventually, there's some people who don't want that, right? They just want to come to work at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, go home at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, punch in, punch out, come back on Monday and start all over again. And that's great. But other people want to learn and grow and be able to feel like they're learning how to be a manager or learning different things. And so you should go through all that with them. Performance reviews is important to an employee's overall growth and development. That kind of seems like gobbledygook saying that, but it's true in the respect of if you are doing something I don't like and I don't tell you about it in a review, how do you know I don't like it? Also, again, I'll give a Texas Tech scale. We have something called a performance review, and it's on a 1 to 7 scale. So if you cure cancer or you stop a world war, you get a 7 on the different areas. If you're really very good and you are make a huge difference across the board, you get a 6. If you're really, really good and you're going above and beyond, you get a 5. If you're doing your job and everyone's happy with what you're doing, you get a 4. Less than 4, then you've got problems. You get a 1 in some area. If I'm consistently late every day and I leave early and I'm unreliable on an accountability scale, I might get a 1. But if I come in every day, I'm there on time, I stay, I'm always there on the weekend, I'm always there if you need me, my accountability scale might be a 5 or 6 or sometimes even a 7. And what that means is you're scored on 10 different areas or so, and then it's averaged out. So it gives you an average. So at Tech, if you want to eventually fire somebody and their average on their performance review is under a 4, less than a 4, they're 3.75, you feel pretty good. But if you want to fire somebody and you've always rated them over a 4, they're going to say to you, well, you didn't do a great job in performance review because you clearly were not happy with this person, but your performance review reads like you're happy with them. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you've got to be honest with people. I worked for Chancellor Hansen. He refused to do performance reviews. Thought they were a waste of time. I worked for President Ellis, and he gave a 7 across the board. So everything was a 7. And so that doesn't make you feel good either because you feel like that's not, he doesn't really mean those things. So it's good for the employee to review. The supervisor conducts the review, and then you sit down with the employee and you talk about where you're weak, where you're strong. Also, a good opportunity for the employee to give candid feedback to you too. Hey, I don't like the way you do this. I don't like this about the job. I don't like this about our office. It's really good for both ways. We always do something too where we say, hey, do a self-evaluation, and then we see where they think they are versus where we think they are. So performance review is very important. And again, performance review serves as a basis for salary adjustments, merit pay, and promotion. At Texas Tech, we get a 2% salary increase every year, no matter what. I mean, that's the minimum, but we only get it if you have a 4.0 or higher on your overall score. Should be initiated by the employer, and again, it's done in person, but you also place copies in the employee's file. And at all times, evaluation should focus on the specifics of the job and the actual performance of the employee. You don't say, hey, man, I don't like your politics, unless their politics are affecting their job and they're bringing their politics into the office every day. But you don't typically do that. And again, you should say, I'm going to book 30 minutes for this, and I'm going to sit down with you or an hour or whatever it would be, and you do it so it avoids people knocking on your door and things. If an employee does not agree with the performance review, there's an appeal process where they can say, hey, I think he was wrong on this. And just some guidelines for successful performance reviews. Talked about this a lot of time. Stay calm. Sometimes that's hard to do. And again, be helpful to the employee and point out where maybe their performance is lacking a little bit and offering some ideas of how they can improve. At all times, be honest. State opinions clearly and do not confuse opinions with fact. As a supervisor, your opinions are really not relevant in a review. It doesn't really seems to be kind of hypocritical, right? State your opinions clearly, but basically what you're saying is these are the facts, if you have an opinion, again, you shouldn't probably bring them up in a review. Hey, I think you are hard to work with. Well, instead, you say, here are the reasons you're hard to work with by saying it. By saying, hey, Mary, you're really argumentative. You really tend to talk about inappropriate things, which makes you, for some people, hard to work with. Avoid using other employees as an example of positive performance. You should be more like Robert. He's really good at this. Why can't you be more like Robert? This is great for parenting also, right? Don't use one child as an example over another. Concentrate only on the employee's performance and expectations. Really, here's what you're doing. Here's how you could be doing it better. And here's what I expect of you in the future. Do not stress deficiencies that are hard to overcome. That could be a myriad of things, right? Hey, I have an employee who's very introverted. She does not like to speak to people, or she's not really a people person. That's hard for her to overcome. She's in a job where she doesn't really have to be, so I don't really talk about too much about it to her. Make sure any discussion of behavior is job related, and offer specifics and other examples that can help clarify important points. I don't think you handled this situation correctly. Here's what you did. Here's what I wanted you to do. Be very specific. And again, positive performance reviews, good working habits often make way for you to be promoted. This one is not necessarily true. Most professionals find it necessary to move up from market to market to achieve their career goals. Really, you can now achieve your career goals in smaller markets more so than you would have been able to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or so. But, and again, I talked about this earlier, not everybody wants to be promoted. I know salespeople that just want to be salespeople. They want to deal with their clients. They want to deal with themselves. They don't want to be the boss. They don't want to be the sales manager. They don't want to worry about your account list. They just want to worry about their account list. So it's not critical to everyone to be promoted. Others want to be the CEO. Others want to move up. And so promotion can be very important to them. What's made it hard is that many electronic media organizations have reduced the number of personnel over the past few years. Now, maybe you get a promotion because you're saying, hey, we're laying off 5 people. Guess what? You are now not only the manager of this department, but also the cleaning person of that department as well. Promotions become harder in that sense because we're seeing this happen a lot. Downsizing, saying we don't need 5 of you, we can do this with 2 of you. Or outsourcing. This happens a lot in graphic design and other areas where you say, what, we don't want to hire you, pay your salary, pay your benefits, pay the taxes on you. Instead, we can outsource this. So that has changed the look of our business as well. And again, you have turnover and termination. So common problems include failing to be at work on time, excessive absences. We have a rule here: if you've missed 3 consecutive days without calling in or unexcused, you're fired. Engaging in employment with another company without permission, inability to follow instructions, contributing to a work environment that is hostile to other employees. Now, these sound great, right? These are all great reasons to be fired. There's other things that you just don't, it's not on here, is you're just not doing your job. So again, it should never come as a surprise when you get fired or you fire somebody. You should never bring somebody in and say, guess what, you're fired. Unless they've done something egregious, an act that otherwise you wouldn't have fired them, that otherwise would always lead to firing. They've been a great employee otherwise, but you find out they stole from the company. Well, that's a reason to fire you. And again, that's not really a surprise. They know in their head, yeah, I screwed up and I stole, so I deserve to be fired. But if you've got an employee that's just been a problem and a problem and a problem, and you haven't dealt with it as the boss, that becomes your problem. That becomes more your fault than their fault. And so if you terminate them, it should have been after a process of, hey, here's some problems we need to work on. in going through a process with them. Again, all disciplinary action should be in writing, and you don't want to have something that creates a threatening work environment. Sometimes you fire somebody doesn't take it very well, and then next thing you know, you've got a little bit of a threatening work environment. So you want to try to foster something that makes it positive. And again, terminations may be caused by numerous things. Hey, we're going to consolidate. We don't need your job anymore. Hey, you just are not doing what we asked you to do. All those things can lead to termination. You're college students, you understand this. Part-timers are important. Sometimes part-timers don't feel a part of the organization, and managers should give part-time employees the same attention given to full-time employees. I can think of two examples. One, I worked at a television station when I was in college. I was a part-time employee. We had a big Christmas party. They gave everyone a door prize, a really nice door prize. Part-time employees didn't get one. I was hacked off at that. I thought, man, I'm working a lot of hours and I didn't get a gift. The other thing I did it as a manager one time when I was running a smaller company. We had 25 or so employees. We decided just as a fun thing, we took everyone out to the mall, gave them $100 in cash, and said, "You've got to spend this in the next 2 hours, next hour on yourself, not something for your kids, not something for your spouse, not something for your boyfriend or girlfriend, on yourself, and bring it back. And we're gonna have like a show and tell at a restaurant here." And we gave the part timers $50. I always thought after that, I kicked myself for years after that, thinking I did the same thing that that television station did, but part-time employees should also be given a lot of attention. And again, it's a great way to get into a business. So you're going to start part-time, you're going to work part-time, you're going to hang around, you're going to do what's needed to be done, and hopefully they'll consider you for full-time. And I've stressed this all semester long. Intern. If you can find an internship opportunity as a boss, as a supervisor, you should not select interns haphazardly. We have a process here. We hire about 20 interns during the fall and spring, and they come in and they interview just like regular employees. They should be evaluated similar to other employees and tell them what they do well and what they don't do well. Sometimes only students enrolled in an actual credit course should be allowed to intern. We don't necessarily do that. We will hire lots of students as interns. Sometimes they'll do it for class. Sometimes they'll just do it because they want to do it. So you're dealing with a diverse workforce, and you've got to be able to have a flexible attitude and understand that not everybody's like you, not everybody thinks the way you do, not everybody looks the way you do, not everybody votes the way you do, not everybody worships the way you do, not everybody eats the way you do, not everybody consumes media the way that you do, not everybody's motivated the way that you are. You have to put all that into the mix. Social conditions have contributed to a diverse workforce, and that's a good thing. That's a positive thing, right? That we have a diverse workforce. But you need to understand that. You need to understand that, hey, some of these things shouldn't be allowed here in the office because of the diversity of our workforce. So you need to have a flexible attitude and approach. The only thing that changes that is if you own your own business and you say, hey, and we saw that one of you talked about that on, owning your own business and be able to serve who you want to serve, right? That's completely up to you of working the way you want to work, working how you want to work. If you own your own business, if you're part of an organization, especially a large organization, you need to be able to work with the diversity in your office. There are some guidelines. The most important is equal opportunity, non-discrimination, that you are going to not only in the hiring process not discriminate, but also give everyone an opportunity to get the job and then treat them the way everyone else is treated when they're actually in the job. So you need to be familiar with the requirements of the Equal Employment Act and affirmative action programs. So, 2003, the FCC implemented new EEO regulations, which talked about how you advertise about full-time jobs, um, to how you post a job, and how you have a couple of recruitment initiatives within a 2-year period. Another one that's not even mentioned here is now any qualified veteran needs to be interviewed for a job. So I go through, when I'm going through my 5,100 resumes, if I have a veteran apply, they need to be given consideration regardless. Then there are other things like sexual harassment. These are issues in personnel management. Examples of sexual harassment include unwanted sexual advances, requests for favors. Hey, if you go out with me, um, I'll consider you for promotion. If you go out with me, I'll give you a raise. If you go out with me, I'll give you this job that you wanted. All those things are examples of sexual harassment. And then, again, other conduct of a sexual nature. We had an employee that was watching pornography on his computer right there in the open with other employees around. And so he was spoken to about that because it was considered sexual harassment. Also, go back to the emotional intelligence, not very smart, right? Not good judgment on that employee's part. But you have to look at all those things and understand the nature of the sexual harassment. And here, again, in a big organization like this, we do have clearly defined policies that prohibit sexual harassment. And then we also have a great communication program that tells their employees what their rights are and what the procedures are if they feel like they have been sexually harassed. And every year, HR comes in and gives us a big, a big presentation about sexual harassment. And dealing with sexual harassment demands sensitive and responsible actions on the part of management. I had an employee that I learned was attempting, he was in his late 20s, early 30s, attempting to go out and date one of our student athletes. You have to learn how to deal with that on both sides. It's sensitive information, and you have to learn how to be responsible for that. Other things that we have labor laws, Fair Labor Standards Act, which recently changed all of our salaried people, for the most part, to hourly. If you didn't meet a certain number salary amount or management criteria, they were all put to hourly employees. The National Labor Relations Act, Equal Employment Act, Age Discrimination Employment Act. That's working for me now. Later on, as I get older, all of a sudden I'm on looking at that. Equal Pay Act. We saw the monkeys at the beginning. Those monkeys want to be in on that Equal Pay Act. American with Disabilities Act. ADA. That's why you see places making some place more easily accessible to wheelchairs, etc. That's the ADA. And then the Family and Medical Leave Act. I've got 2 employees right now that are going to have babies this fall. One in November, one in late in December, right before winter starts, and they'll be able to take leave thanks to the Family and Medical Leave Act. We don't deal much with unions, so we're not going to talk about that, except for you see this sometimes a lot, especially in our professional sports. Collective bargaining is the process of negotiation between the union and the management. So they work closely together. They have an interdependent relationship. And clearly, if they're all on the same page, they're trying to achieve common goals. But we don't deal with that much in Texas with labor issues. And so it doesn't become much of an issue here in this part of the state. Now, there are other places, obviously, where that is a huge deal, but not in Texas. So the hierarchical structure, that's hard for me to say, in media organizations has changed and has impacted the communication between management and employees. There used to be a real heavy top to bottom structure. That's gone away a little bit, and that's called flattening, where now you have maybe spread out the leadership and the management. It makes you leaner. Continuing development and education program for employees and move towards self-generated projects, not me coming in and saying, hey, you do this today, you do this today. Instead, they're self-generating projects. And that's a factor, and that's an example of tasks of organizations that are flattened. They've gone beyond the hierarchy of, hey, the CEO tells the general manager tells this person tells this person, gets down. Instead, um, it's more of a straight line management type structure. Technology has played a big part of that. Lines of communication, interaction between managers, employees, email communications, texting, and things like that have really changed the communication flow. Because of that, email, text messaging, and things. There used to be, how are you going to get to the boss? How are you going to be able to talk to the boss in 1970? Can't. You got a secretary, you got to go through your manager, and all those things. Now, because of technology, information, you can send information, you can send ideas up to the boss, and it can be spread sideways in an open structure. It eliminates the need for top-down flow of communication. And successful managers have people skills and technology access and understand how that all works together. So that is it for today's. A lot of information there. That's a lot of test questions on that. All these slides will be online and available for your test. So make sure you check those, and you'll be able to access all of this to prepare for your test. And even as the test is going, right, you'll be able to have the information ready for you as you're taking the test. Please send your video about Generation Like in by Monday the 24th at 5 p.m. We're also going to have another assignment this week, and then hopefully tomorrow I'll put the parameters for your project as well. So have a great week. We're off to a good start. We'll talk to you tomorrow.